We're back with more college football coverage, and yes, this is a double upload because we now have more information into the aftermath surrounding the Sherrone Moore case. Before getting into that new information, it's important to harken back to a point that I made in the previous video detailing this, because I mentioned how interesting it would be to see how we would move forward in this situation when it comes to the school trying to investigate the matter. And when it came also to their history, their recent history, of how they've handled situations like this involving employee and, I guess, co-contributor relationships in that situation. Like, obviously, it started out with the provost being in this situation with a different one of their subordinates and ultimately being forced to resign, having the rule implemented, and then having another individual in 2022, Schlissel, engage in the same kind of inappropriate relationship with a staff member and also be forced to leave, exit his post. Why is this a theme that is constantly happening in this school? I essentially said along those lines. And to fully move on from the situation, it would be important for the program to first wrestle with that reality. That regardless of what they have enforced over the past couple of years, there's clearly something being missed here if we are continuing to have this pattern flare up again and again on a year-to-year basis with different individuals in different areas of the athletic department and different areas of the school, generally speaking. And another point as well, Ward Manuel, the athletic director. There was a meeting with him and other members of the Michigan Board of Regents last week, as well, also being talked about from multiple sources. And essentially, people have still questioned, well, okay, should he even still be there at this point? Is there any kind of conflict of interest going on here? That's still to be determined. In reality, Ward Manuel is a character who actually has a lot of ties to the overall program. He is an alum of the school. He's an alum of the football team. And he's currently in the middle of a contract right now that he signed a few years back. He's been there since 2016, per one of the sources that I read. So that could make things, when it comes to the actual investigation into Sherrone Moore, even more layered than we previously thought. And so when it comes to trying to move forward in the situation, yes, there will still be insight and a search into what exactly happened between this staff member and more how far the relationship spanned, how much content came from that, and everything that led to the events that transpired last week. But with an added twist here, because essentially, the firm that has done business with the University of Michigan previously and who is currently handling the case for Sherrone Moore's investigation right now said, hold up, not so fast, my friend. We're going to look into every single one of your asses too. We are leaving no stone unturned here, especially given some of the stuff that's happened over the past few years with the provost, with Schlissel, and with another character that was cited here that I'll get into later. But essentially, per ESPN and other sources, the University of Michigan has commissioned a full investigation into the practices and culture of its athletic department centering on how numerous scandals have both occurred and been handled in recent years, a source told ESPN. End quote. And I'm like, okay, that's fair game. Because seriously, you have to rid all of that shit out of your system if you are an organization, if you are a program. And it truly starts by looking within, with addressing every single thing that you yourself have contributed to this over the past few years and figuring out, is there a way for you that needs to be altered, that needs to be completely eradicated in some fashion to properly move forward and handle future situations properly so that this kind of stuff does not continue to happen. Like, I'm sure that this Moore situation has definitely come off as an embarrassment to the reputation of the school. That's no secret. We've already mentioned how different players who were planning to go there, signing their national letters of intent, ultimately decided to back out as a result of the firing. And even with those who might have still decided to come in. Could you imagine, with social media now being a thing, how much they're hearing it from other people watching from afar, maybe some within their circles of like, hey, maybe you are making the decision that you believe is best for you, but let's go ahead and remind this person what exactly he is walking into right now, if he isn't fully aware. And let's consistently ram it in their heads over and over and over and over again. It's probably not quieted down to this point. Like, we're still very much fresh into this thing. So, all of this is heating up as we speak. And it just is bad press all around. But I'd much rather go through this right now and try to get to the full scope of the matter. Get to the actual bottom of this. To solve whatever the long-standing problem, whatever the long-standing pattern is in that program. To get a hold of it and cast it out. So that as we move forward, other players aren't affected in the same way. Other bodies in the school aren't affected the same way. And ultimately, fairly and properly protecting the employees who work for these programs, whether it be in the athletic department or anywhere, while also taking a look and a shot in ways at the old guard, handling the matter, the authorities who see themselves controlling a lot of everything that happens around the school, consistently having to be the ones reportedly handling these investigations, but also not seemingly doing enough at convenient times. Just kind of flowing with the tides of the situation. Maybe they could have gotten ahead of this far before it hit the national eye. Maybe they had a greater role involved in a lot of these matters that we don't know about. And that is exactly what is going to be determined through this investigation. As the CBS Sports article states, along with others, quote, the law firm Jenner & Block has been tasked with the review, which the source described as an open-ended inquiry into the athletic department. CBS Sports granted the source anonymity because of the sensitivity of the investigation, end quote. And yeah, that makes total sense. Like, you can't exactly compare this to a whistleblower situation, but man, if they find any kind of dirt on any of the people involved, whether it be manual, whether it be other people in other departments of the school, whether it be other potential major players associated with the school implicated in any of these reports, that changes the complexion of the entire situation surrounding Sherrone more. No, it doesn't take away from what he did. If these are things that were actually committed by him, he chose to carry out those actions, if that's how this ends up turning out. But again, if you have other bodies here playing a role to where they could have prevented this beforehand, or they could have put a stop to this beforehand before it even got out of control like this, and did nothing to stop it, or did everything they possibly could to potentially, as some articles are saying here, potentially a cover-up of the matter entirely, we have a completely different lens of the situation on our hands, in a completely different beast to deal with, because that will pose a ton of problems in other discrepancies in its coverage, and make you look very differently at the people who got this information out, who reportedly said all these things about Sherrone Moore beforehand, and were still willing to let this slide, let it pass like it was nothing, despite all the reports of saying how Schembechler Hall, the, I guess, house of all the athletics squads and things of that nature, was flooded with different police officials, FBI officials, and things like that throughout the course of the season. But that's nothing per se. That's all just an illusion. That's for no reason. No direct reason related to anything we have going on here. Just precautionary. Right. Okay. There are a lot of questions from a lot of different people. And it's not restricted to just what I'm about to read here. But this, I think, just gives you a little insight into what the mindset on this might be. As this quote from USA Today states, not only are there questions about the timing of UM's investigation, rumors swirl, but didn't crescendo until after a loss to Ohio State, with the relationship not established until after an incoming recruiting class had mostly committed during the early national signing period. But about how such a long-term relationship within the department could have gone unnoticed by so many. The first hint of impropriety came from an anonymous tip earlier this year through a university hotline, stating Moore and the staffer were involved. The university brought both parties in for questioning and searched their phones, per the source, but no impermissible relationship was discovered. And to add on to that, this quote from the AP also states, well before Manuel's inquiry in the law firm's investigation, a social media influencer outside the state contacted the school to express concerns about Moore's behavior. Two people familiar with the situation said, end quote. Those two things could be related to each other when it comes to this anonymous tip and this social media influencer, but I can't say that I am entirely sure about that right now. Although there have been other reports that I've seen, or at least posts from Twitter via a bit of a comical video on the situation, where it was detailed that he was engaging in a far greater realm of potential infidelity between talking to different models on not safe for work platforms, between engaging in a litany of different grimy texts with other individuals while in the course of the relationship. And it goes even deeper than what I covered. Even darker than what I covered. So those things, I mean, it's Twitter, right? You can take that with a grain of salt, and I'm not going to get into all that here. That is for other people on that site to decipher themselves. But it's crazy. Like, you have this situation coming out, and then you have other people saying how they were also approached by Sherrone Moore in similarly off-putting ways, to say the least, given the nature of the situation as a whole. It's genuinely just not even something I want to engage in talking about when it comes to that. But again, if all those things are to be true, then it's like, as I said in that video, you can say that he was not making the smartest decisions in the world. He genuinely wasn't. But again, it's going to be hypocritical when you have some of the same people who engaged in some of their own risque behavior with different women in their respective spaces to be going after Sherrone Moore for doing the same thing. Maybe again, it's just trying to give him advice, give him guidance as a person who went through that before, but not all the coverage has been that way, to say the least. And it's like, damn, you can't try to be the pot calling the kettle black when you were doing some of the same stuff yourself. You just can't, and it's not fair. But when it comes back to the first part of this quote, the timing of this thing, there's a very real possibility that from, I guess, the fear that the fan base potentially had, any number of things could be possible. And if this was truly a matter of timing it down following the loss of Ohio State, earlier a few weeks back, right? It's like, come on. Because at that point, you'd really be trying to make this somewhat of a double mission here. Like, of course, nobody on either side, with as deep of a rivalry as this is, even though it's a game, neither side wants to lose. We know how bad Ryan Day got it for years on end by consistently losing to this team from the same fan base. We know how bad he got it from them. And the noise got completely loud last season. Completely loud. But ultimately things went a certain way, and he still got his job intact. We've heard nothing as well about anything going on behind the scenes. To our knowledge, in the national space, to this point, Ryan Day's been more than fine in his personal life, with his wife and, I believe, children. And again, this is not a matter of comparison here. But again, if you knew in a way that Sherrone Moore, as other people put it, had mental health problems, had all this stuff going on behind the scenes, had a potential relationship with a staff member months in advance before all of this went down, why would you willingly withhold the information and then drop it right after that happens, knowing how much pressure is going to be on Moore, how much noise he's going to hear from the Michigan fans after that loss, and then you pile it on to try to make the entire thing seem legitimate when you had the resources and material, potentially, if they find these things to be the case, in the investigation. You might have already had the resources to solve this problem far before then, and not have this be the spectacle that it was. Of course, the public should still be informed about it. So I'm not saying, okay, completely hide the information, and that's the point. Like, don't hold off on the information. Let us know. Let us know what happened in an efficient manner. Because the way it went, if you did get a tip earlier and you had an investigation that you apparently bypassed, as it said, both parties were brought in, they searched their phones, but no impermissible relationship was discovered then. I think I read somewhere else through one of these articles that they searched their phones for the school that they were issued. And it's like, okay, if you have phones specifically designated for the school, all I'm going to ask you is this, because I don't know, and we don't know anything until the investigation fully goes through, but what made them believe at the time that they would find improper behavior between these two on their school-issued cell phones? Now again, this one just says their phones, another one said school-issued cell phones, so there could be a bit of a conflict in that. But if it is found that you issued them these cell phones, and they brought their school-issued ones on their person to this questioning, and you searched them, what made you think you were going to find something there? They would not, there's no way. We're not going to be that harsh, but you would legitimately have to be stupid at that point to believe that they would put all that risque information, not safe for work material, on their school-issued cell phones and devices. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. But again, if you had some kind of tell about this, if you had some kind of tell about Sherrone Moore's behavior, at the very least, this could have been made the case far earlier in the season. Why did it have to be after a game that has some of the highest stakes in terms of bragging rights, in terms of national attention? Why? There's no reason to at that point. You were just, if that is the case, trying to do what's convenient for yourself by scapegoating it. Oh, he couldn't get the job done, and that's already a strike against him, but hey, now we have a litany of other things that we can utilize against him. So let's deploy this now, and let's strategically move him out. That would be a major problem. A major problem on their front. And they would have to hear it if this is the case. So that's one aspect that they would probably be trying to look for the law firm in this investigation. Also, too, as I mentioned, the players already. Again, this could have happened far beforehand. Sherrone Moore, if anything, as a head coach, I would say, was still building up his reputation there. Still. Was he fully proven? He's just been there for a couple of years as a head coach. We know what he's done as a coordinator in the past, and he's done damn well. He's got a championship resume, he can say now, at that position. But even that came with a bit of turmoil when you look at everything that's happened with Michigan over the past couple of years, in just football alone. Still, as a head coach, post Jim Harbaugh, he's done solid, but he still had a lot of work to do as a figure in the program. And you could say that this next season was going to be another key step for him. So it'd be important to remain in place and have something established and something to game plan for, to look forward to in the future. To keep on moving this team in the right direction to ensure that they get the best talent that they can possibly acquire throughout the recruiting process, throughout the transfer portal process. And we've consistently stated at this point, it's been consistently said at this point by other people, by other analysts, and, Cam Newton as well, also being in this space as an analyst. Like, dude, these coaches dictate a lot of the decisions that these players make when it comes to choosing schools. No, Moore might not have been fully established as a head coach, but the players that came there, that are now with him in this tenure, have started to build relationships with him. The recruits that he has probably talked to over the course of the season have gotten to know him and understand him at least a little bit, to want to be willing to come to Michigan and sign with the program. And clearly, a good amount of people were there already. Yet, you know and understand how much power that holds. And you also drop this load, this massive expose, essentially, at the exact same time when National Signing Day is taking place, when you know that people have committed already strictly because of him being the head coach. And just like that, he's gone. Well, now other players follow. You understood that coming into the situation. And if you genuinely did not know about what went down, then that's one thing. But it feels as though, and maybe they feel as though, that some of the signs were there. There's a chance that you picked up on some of these things and you didn't act. We gotta see about that. Because all of that non-action, despite being exposed to the material, has just left Michigan over the years in this cycle, this never-ending cycle of just inappropriate behavior when it comes to supervisor-employee relationships. Repeatedly. And it is not a great cycle to be a part of, especially, again, when you have some of the other bodies. Grasso, for example, is an interim president. He hasn't been exposed to all this stuff. He's genuinely trying to do what's right here, I would believe. And even he knows at this point that he's not going to be there for the long haul. So, even in relief, this is going to be a ton for him to deal with. But something's got to be figured out one way or another. Now, it's at this point that we have to go back a little bit to look into what happened to add another wrinkle to the issues within this Michigan organization. Because it goes a little further than what we've been covering. I mean, some of the ones are obvious. You know about the Stallions sign stealing. You know about Harbaugh's violations. You now know about the provost. You now know about the former president, that they are still trying to replace actively. Grasso's the interim, as I mentioned. They are still actively searching for a new one. But now we have even another wrinkle here, I should say. So as this ESPN article also details, quote, "This is the latest in a series of scandals that have hit both the athletic department and the university as a whole. It includes a federal indictment in March of former offensive coordinator Matt Weiss, who was facing 24 charges of unauthorized access to computers and aggravated identity theft. Prosecutors from the Eastern District of Michigan alleged that Weiss ran a vast, multi-year effort to access the personal accounts of thousands of NCAA student athletes across the country. He is charged with targeting specific female athletes to access personal and intimate photographs and videos. Some of the alleged crimes, the feds say, occurred while Weiss was working inside the school's football facility, Schembechler Hall, from 2021 to 2022 and during a previous stint with the NFL's Baltimore Ravens. End quote. Yes, you heard that right. Aggravated identity theft and potentially the pursuit of damn near illegal, I might say, material with unauthorized access to computers and trying to get what from female athletes that you have no connection to whatsoever. You're just going around trying to do this to thousands of random NCAA student athletes just because. That is a completely different window. And I don't know at the time if there was anything going on there. Like, usually with something like that, you have to make sure that you have this absolutely right. But I ain't gonna lie, like, you don't come out if you are the feds. You don't come out and charge somebody with that material. You don't have a situation where you pursue an arrest and a conviction of somebody doing that kind of stuff if you aren't 90% sure that this is something that they actually ended up doing in real time. And again, it all ties back into improper relationships. All of it ties back into just misconduct completely. Now, this is on a completely different plane. Although that could be disputed if, again, it was found that Sherrone Moore was potentially doing these things with multiple women while also being married himself. Why is this a pattern? Because we can also assume, even though I wouldn't be sure, I've never heard of Matt Weiss before. I've never heard of him. But you can also assume that he might be married with children, engaging in this type of behavior at the university while actively participating on the staff as an established member of the program, abusing that power against other people who don't know him, just like I don't know him, and taking advantage of it because he has an understanding at this point, before he was indicted, I should say, had a feeling in a way that he couldn't be touched. He could not be caught out doing any of this because they were subordinates. They were not on his playing field. And he used that to the most disgusting benefit, in his case, imaginable, by constantly trying to exploit this. Same thing with the provost. Same thing with who is now the former president in Schlissel, in the same pattern with Sherrone Moore. So now, if you have to ask, you have to ask yourself, as the Jenner and Block law firm, like, yeah, we are obligated to help you out with this investigation. We've been working with the university before, even though they're Chicago based. That doesn't necessarily matter. They are very much willing to extend their services and help over to them whenever they've asked for it at this point. But at some point, man, you have all this potential impropriety going on behind the scenes collectively, and you are just trying to you're trying to play around with the matter. You are actively trying to lead us on to one thing when you have a load of problems going on underneath that we need to get to the belly of and completely crack so that we can put a stop to this collectively. That's how this is right now. Like, you literally are, by potentially having all this go on, okay? Because all those are also allegations. And nothing's happened with that yet, I believe. This is something that probably still have to be investigated, taken to trial, so on and so forth. But the longer that you as a university waited to get this information out, and especially if you had knowledge of it beforehand, like, you are trying to put out these statements to the population of the university at large, trying to set a standard and an example to model themselves after. And you are actively failing to do that on your front. Integrity, respect, and accountability. That's what that statement said. That's what that statement said. Those are the three main things that statement focused on. And if anything is found out about this potentially being a cover-up or some potential conflict of interest between any number of people involved in this matter, especially when it comes to Manuel, the AD. If anything is found out in this situation as a part of the investigation from the law firm, they will not hear the end of it. They simply won't. How do you regain the trust of your student populace if it is found that the very same people in these higher positions of power, purportedly so, are trying to promote these values to you, and by bypassing all of the proper regulations when it comes to handling different investigations of improper behavior, they aren't living up to a single one of them, potentially. Keeping you in the dark and keeping people like you in the dark is they are also actively being affected by the actions of each and every single one of these people believed to have engaged in these improper relationships. And in Weiss's case, that is damn near exploitation. That is damn near, and you're doing this on the computer, but that is damn near Larry Nassar-esque in the scale of people that you are actively trying to get access to and allegedly do some kind of harm to. Because of some sick, twisted desire that you potentially have. I don't know who the fuck that person is. But that is the greatest wrong in all of this. You can't actively sit here and promote those three values and then proceed to hold everybody in the dark of vital information that implicates that some of your very same people that you may be trying to protect are not carrying themselves in that manner at all. And out of some sort of obligation, I guess, to uphold a reputation, you also fail to live up to those values yourself. They would never be able to recover from that. Or at the very least, it would take a number of years. A number of years. We're not comparing the situations. But again, if I could sit there and say when it came about that James Franklin got fired and how I detailed that in a way, that program has never recovered from what Sandusky and Paterno did. If that is still the sentiment there, could you imagine if it came out and it doesn't even take the entire department or all the members in the school to be implicated in this? You got one bad apple in there that is found to have done something incredibly negative, tying into the entire thing here. It's, yeah, like, nah. That is not going to go over well with anybody in that community. With anybody. Good luck trying to fix that, because it is going to be far, far from a quick fix. Straight up. Straight up. Now, for Manuel, his contract is winding down, as I've read through other reports here, and this could put him in an interesting predicament, all things considered. He would be up for a re-sign. He could potentially be fired, but it would all come down to the decision of the actual president. As ESPN states, the university would owe Manuel 57, who signed a new 5-year contract in December 2024, about $6.75 million if it dismissed him without cause. End quote. And as the USA Today article states, Grasso has indicated that, to those around him, that his plan is to finish the academic year until May, according to a person with knowledge of his expected timeline. The Detroit Free Press has learned the candidate list for president has been narrowed down, and a decision could come early in 2026, though said hire would not take over, likely, until May 2026, especially if they're currently overseeing a university of their own, and the Jenner and Block investigation would almost certainly be over by that point, according to the Free Press's source. That would put the decision on Grasso with the backing of the board to make a decision. The Michigan Board of Regents, that would be. So, we are in, as I've already said, this is far, far from over. And, hey, we've still got a lot to figure out when it comes to the Sherrone Moore case. A ton to figure out. Because when you add in all those different voices, it can be difficult to decipher what is real and what isn't. That is fair. We have some established facts of it already. There's still a lot more to uncover before that date on January 22nd, which is more scheduled time to return to court. But hey, while we can get that progress done there, Jenner and Block is taking it upon themselves to come after the whole damn thing. The entire fucking thing. And if they find something, anything, a lot of other jobs could be in just as much danger. Like, this would be the epitome of essentially saying, okay, you want to take Sherrone Moore down, fine, we're going to take a whole lot more of you down too. If it is found that you acted in similar ways trying to potentially keep these situations and a lot of others that have happened over the past few years in that program under wraps. Because it is unfair to the families that all of these people have to withhold this information, while they have to sit around and be exposed to these people on a consistent basis without knowing anything at all, like nothing's wrong. While you're, again, holding a ton of different players, other staff members, and other subordinates in the dark, knowing that on any given day, given the scale of how widespread this could be, they could find themselves in the exact same situations if they're not careful. It's like, come on, that's slummy fucking work. Nobody comes out of this unscathed. Like I said in the video. The first one, I should say. No one's coming out of this unscathed, bro. Nobody. And they are not fucking around. So, man, oh boy. This could go a number of different ways. Like, if there is no substance to it, they look into it as deeply as possible and they don't find anything, okay. But if they do, if there's smoke where there is fire, man, hey, bro. I would honestly, in that situation, you could expect, because while the NCAA themselves can be questionable at times, if this goes a certain way, I wouldn't be surprised to see even more sanctions imposed on different aspects of the university's operations. I wouldn't be surprised to see different sanctions imposed on a few of their athletic programs. Even more on the football program, with them already dealing with a few. It's been mentioned at multiple points that Sherrone Moore was supposed to serve a self-imposed one-game suspension yet again this season, because of his implications in the Stallion scandal. And it's like, at that point, when is enough for you? When is enough for you? Because instead of potentially overriding the matter and acting like it doesn't really have an effect on how things are going on around there, Jenner Block has something else to say about that. And they want to get in depth as possible into every single avenue, every single nook and cranny of that school, to determine whether or not there is far more to the story than we even know right now as the general population, and far outside of Michigan. So, again, that'll do it for this one. And I wanted to stick with it as well. Of course, I'm going to have a fair amount of time to, get into a lot of different things. There was a very real possibility, given the video that'll come out before this, I could have definitely made a decision to tie some of that material in, and also make a mention of this at the same time. But in reality, given that I now have the space to give this its full respect, I would not be doing this justice by essentially just casting it off like, it's something incredibly minor in the entire landscape of university operations. Much greater than just any particular sport or not. And it'll certainly have an effect on college football, don't get me wrong, but it potentially, if this goes a certain way, is much deeper than that just now. It would not be right for me to try to cast this off like it's nothing. Because at that point, I'd be doing the same thing, potentially, that these other people could be looked into for doing. And that's just, no. No. Not a chance. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.